This is Why Am I a Mets Fan? A podcast hosted by Samantha Croston and Ashley Wenskoski.
What's up, everyone? Welcome into another episode of the Why Am I a Mets Fan podcast. That's Ashley Wenskoski. I'm Samantha Croston, and we are two sports reporters based in Syracuse, New York. Thanks so much, as always, for joining us. Hello, Ashley. How are we feeling?
Hello. The Mets are back. Not they ever really left, but we were on more of a down note last week. This week, since we last talked, they took 2 out of 3 from both the Diamondbacks and the Cubs, 2 very good teams so far this year, so not too shabby. Now they go into a series with the Pirates, one of the worst teams in baseball. Pirates have had some trials and tribulations lately, fired their manager. We'll get into it. We'll talk about the game last night, the walk-off, Paul Skenes, the whole thing. But the Mets, I should say, 27-15, tied for the most wins in baseball right now with the Dodgers and the Tigers.
Even the haters at this point have to understand, appreciate, and respect the fact that the Mets are a really good team. No longer at this time will I be hearing the narrative that the Mets are only beating bad teams in baseball.
No.
Sorry,
I will not
done.
be taking that. Although I will say, and we'll get into it at the end of the episode, I'm jumping the gun a little, we do have, after the old friend Pirates, a bit of a gauntlet here coming up with the Yankees. Subway Series incoming this weekend. Red Sox and Dodgers. So that, my friends, will be a bit of a gauntlet.
That'll be telling. But in a good way.
Telling in a good way.
I don't fear that.
No, me neither.
I welcome that.
It's a new feeling, not to fear.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't feel like any trauma even right now. I actually just feel okay.
Us in our therapy session, our post-traumatic stress is being healed.
It really is.
Great.
So yes, there's a lot going on, but I think we had to start by talking about last night. The Mets were facing the ace, Paul Skenes, Livvy Dunne in the building.
The
I felt
whole
like
nine.
It was kind of a spectacle in general last night.
Whenever Paul Skenes and Livvy Dunne show up somewhere, not to start the episode with this, but I guess we're starting the episode with this, it really is a true spectacle. Baseball is really trying to make them into like the first couple of the sport.
Yep.
And can I just say that I'm not really interested? Like, I see what they're going for. Paul Skenes doesn't have the personality for it, neither does Livvy Dunne really, and he plays in Pittsburgh. So like, nothing against Pittsburgh. I love it there, but not one of your top markets.
I know what you mean, and honestly, I will say, I actually think Livvy Dunne is relatively charismatic. Paul Skenes just can't be your face of that.
Not bringing a lot to the table. Kind of has the personality of a walnut.
Yeah. Whoa. It's getting spicy already. Yo. No, I honestly agree. He's kind of a shy guy. There's nothing else to say about it. But he's a really good pitcher. And still, the Mets were able to overcome that and win. It was a 4-3 walk-off win. Who else, baby? Pete Alonso, sac fly in the bottom of the 9th, and Lindor comes around to score. I mean, this guy.
A true delight. Peter Alonso. Yeah, it was sort of a back-and-forth game. In the 9th, though, you got that 1-2-3 coming up. Skenes had a quote on it here, even though it wasn't his fault. He actually pitched a great game. Skenes, I think, I have the line here somewhere, 6 innings pitched, 6 hits, 1 earned run, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts. So not Paul's fault. And he did not disappoint Livvy Dunne, who was in attendance. It was really the wheels fell off the bus when he departed the game. But he had a quote after the game that said that 1 through 3, Lindor, Soto, Alonso, he said when they're bad, they're still good. All 3 of those guys are those guys. Over the course of a season, guys are going to slump a little bit. Their slumps aren't slumps. I'm going to use that for the rest of the year, by the way. Their slumps aren't slumps on Lindor, Soto, Alonso. Because it's so true. You see those 3, right? The Pirates tie it in the 9th. You're sort of like, all right, like this was a game the Mets were winning. And you see those 3 coming up, and especially in the late innings, your fear almost evaporates in a sense, which is strange. Lindor gets on in an error, Soto singles, runners to the corner, Pete walks it off. Good night. Have a great day.
No, but it is so true. There is a different level of confidence, I think, that you're feeling now that you didn't before. I will say, just to say it, and we'll probably talk about it a little in the Yankee series, I'm still feeling like the start to Juan Soto's year has been pretty underwhelming.
Yep.
I get it, the 1 through 3, and it seems good on paper. I am not really all that pleased with what he's been bringing to the table, and I don't feel like he's been all that consistent, but I do still absolutely believe that over the course of however many years that he's with the Mets, that it will have been a good signing. But I don't think you can skate around the fact that it's sort of been a womp, womp, womp to start the year, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I think he's hitting like 258 or something. Don't quote me on that. I'm uninterested on fixating on it still. Not interested in fixation yet. But I will say it is definitely something to track when you pay the guy $765 million. So, we'll keep an eye on that, we'll say.
I would agree. So yes, you also have Nemo quote on the walk-offs here that I would like to read. He said, experience helps. I think we have a lot of maturity, a lot of guys who have been there and done that. The more experience you can get in this game, I think the less pressure you put on a situation. He goes on to say a lot else, but I think that's a really interesting point. When you think about the vets, the leadership, and quite honestly, how long this core group has been together. We don't talk about that a lot.
Yeah, and quite honestly, what they went through in the postseason last year, right? I mean, you know the obvious ones, like Dora's home run, Alonso in Milwaukee, the whole 9 yards, but they truly have been through the late inning stuff a couple of times. So Anthony DiComo, old friend of the program, actual friend of the program, not sarcastic, he wrote a really good article yesterday on the Mets' literal late inning magic with some really interesting stuff, basically saying that in the first 6 innings of a game, the Mets are good. From innings 7 through 9, they're really good. They lead the majors with a plus 27 run differential from the 7th through 9th innings, first in the majors in batting average, slugging percentage, and OPS from 7 through 9, and tied for first in runs scored. And if you can believe it, last night was already the 4th walk-off win the Mets have had this year. I mean, the season's a month old. You've had 4 walk-off wins in a month.
It's unbelievable. It feels like in any of those situations where there's a possibility for a walk-off happens. And that is an amazing place to be, considering, like you said, we're so soon into the season. All I think about now that we are in the month of May is where the Mets were in the month of May last year. I really can't think about anything else.
Things were dark.
Things were so bleak. And yes, they turned it around. But isn't it nice to not be starting from so far behind?
Yeah, to start the race, like you got off to a good start out of the blocks, and that's always a good feeling. But the walk-off thing, I mean, not that it's like their main storyline right now, but last night just brought it up again. Like, I think that really is a testament to the team. The Mets, it says in his article, averaging a walk-off once every 6.4 games. That's more than once per homestand since last year. That's a stat dating back to last year. Like, what the hell? Like, that's crazy. You're walking
crazy.
it off pretty much once a homestand?
It's unbelievable, honestly. It's impressive. And I think a part of what you need to give credit to is the pitching here too.
Yeah.
You know, David Peterson, 6 innings pitched, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, 3 walks, and 7 strikeouts last night. He also went into the 7th inning for the first time this season. To me, that's the key.
Yeah.
That's major.
Yeah, I agree. Keeping him in the game all the way through, right? You sort of know, I mean, the Pirates are the Pirates, one of the worst teams in baseball, but the only real equalizer that they have for teams is Paul Skenes. So you get Paul Skenes out there, maybe the Pirates going to win a game. Not if David Peterson has to say. He's keeping them in that all the way through. So, yeah, I mean, we're going to get into it. Sort of our next topic, that the Mets pitching has just been absolutely fantastic. We've been talking about that, but now as the season sort of gets into the second month, gets really like 6 weeks in, it's not a fluke. It's not something that is, going away. And I think it'll be interesting to watch down the stretch, of course. But to say that Griffin, Canning, and Clay Holmes, and Peterson in some senses, but we saw flashes of greatness from Peterson last year, to say that Canning and Holmes have overperformed would be an understatement.
I completely agree. We have some stats here, but Canning had the 12th best ERA in MLB, 4th in the NL, and Holmes has the 22nd best ERA in MLB, 9th in the NL. I totally agree. I think the pitching, it was that one thing going into the season where you had a little question mark above it.
Yeah.
That question has been answered so thoroughly. It's actually insane. Bullpen, maybe not always perfect, but again, really, really good. I even actually have been liking what I've been seeing from Edwin Diaz. I don't see so many holes in this lineup or in this pitching staff, and I think it is going to be interesting to see what exactly are they going to do once Manaea comes back.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I saw a thing the other day, which is a topic for another time, but like the potential list of starters that the Mets actually have on the roster for 2026. I mean, think about, you got Christian Scott coming back. Like, the list of starting options that they have for 2026 is crazy. But yeah, you said it. The bullpen hasn't been perfect. I think the bullpen's come back down to earth a little bit. Still the 6th best ERA in baseball, so I don't really know how you can fight with that. I think if I do have one concern heading down the stretch, some of the streaky hitting with runners in scoring position is a concern, but I think the bullpen, with the loss of Minter and the loss of Danny Young, I mean, still 2 holes that they haven't really confidently filled. You see Cabrera come up. You see them throw a few other things at the problem. You see guys like Brazaban step up, Stanek step up, Diaz step up. But I don't know if I lock it in that I trust the bullpen yet. Whether that's warranted or not, maybe that's just some old stress talking. I don't know if I trust them just yet.
Which I understand, and honestly, that to me feels like a place where you could even see somebody from the Syracuse Mets even coming up to fill that hole.
Definitely.
And I am sorry that I just can't remember the guy's name right now, but there is somebody who they just brought up to the Syracuse Mets who actually is a lefty, and he did make one start for the Syracuse Mets, but he predominantly has been pitching in the bullpen. I will find out his name and put it in the comments. That's who I actually think the Mets could potentially look to fill that hole.
Yeah, we saw them call up Brandon Waddell, and he actually had a decent minute up in New York. But also Nolan McLean, I know he's a starter. We talked about him last week on our show, but he came up and had a really fantastic Nolan McLean update. He was called up to the Syracuse Mets. Well, he had a really fantastic first start for the Syracuse Mets.
Yeah,
again, a starter, but also falls into that pitching depth, right? You think about how much depth the Mets are truly compiling at this point with McLean, Tidwell, Sproat down on the farm, and then sort of their other options up in New York. But
I totally agree. I think that is something to look out for. Here's the other thing that you should be looking out for right now, especially if you're a Brett Baty fan.
Hold your breath.
I mean, again, we're going back on the ride. Feels like we never get to take a breath from it.
It's not a roller coaster that I enjoy.
That's what
if
I
I'm
mean.
being frank.
Like, can you get that by my tone? Like, it was a fun roller coaster the first time and the second time, but now my kid's asking to go on it for the eighth time, and I'm
nauseous.
gonna puke.
No, I'm nauseous.
I'm gonna throw up.
Yeah.
Like, I've had enough of this ride. Like, imagine how his mom feels. How sickening.
I know, honestly.
Her stomach has been through too much.
She has been through a few things.
It's been too much. I mean,
Brett Baty,
where is he even
We're
living
talking
right
about
now?
Mrs. Brett Baty.
Who's housing him?
Not his wife, his
Genuinely.
mom.
Like, where does he live during these stints?
You really have to think, like, there has to be some sort of an apartment in Syracuse with some things in it, some New York going up. I mean, these guys have lives.
So stressful.
I know. It's sort of funny to hear. Sometimes I know SNY did a thing when Tidwell got called up for one start, and he was like, yeah, Drew Gilbert's watching my dog. Like, does Brett Baty have a dog? Where's the dog?
Wait, where's the dog?
Where's the Tahoe?
We're literally going to label an episode, Where's the Dog and Where's the Tahoe? Brett Baty's experience. But he's doing great.
And where's the toothbrush, honestly?
Right?
Like, all of it.
You need to, I think at this point you need a toothbrush in Syracuse and a toothbrush in New York.
I would agree.
It's too much traveling.
Yeah,
It gets annoying at some point.
It does.
Yeah, he's doing great. He has been hitting 3 home runs in the series against the Cubs. And he had 6 RBI in that series. And he went 4 for 8. I mean, again, numbers. It's classic. You know what it is? It's Syracuse Brett Baty right there.
Oh, we've seen a good little streak from Brett. We'll see if he can keep it up. All I've seen from Brett so far is moments and streaks. I would like to see some consistency from Brett. But yeah, SNY, SNY just puts on a masterclass sometimes on sort of cherry picking stats or sort of like clowning situations that they know. Like, SNY has a very good pulse on the fan base in terms of social media and what fans are saying. Like, they know what you want to see in the graphics. So
what do they not do a good job at? There's a question.
Right. True. They're on the pulse of a few things.
Shout out, because the director has been
my
getting
God.
a lot of good press lately.
Oh my God. The shots in the glasses, like, if you're on Mets Twitter, that is just cinema.
Well, and finally, like it's funny because I feel like now, just for whatever reason, you know how that goes. One tweet goes viral and it's blowing up and everyone's like, wow, like the director for all the Mets broadcasts is so cinematic. Like, we all knew that already. He was always this
Welcome
good.
to the club.
You all are just seeing that now.
Welcome to the party.
How blessed are we to have that plus Gary, Keith, and Ron?
I know.
What more can you ask for?
No, you know what? Sorry, we're getting off topic. But you know what I saw somebody say? I think his name, shout out, is John D. Morisco.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think that's the director at SNY that truly creates magic every single night. They do truly things on TV for sporting events that nobody else does, with the fades and the shots, and it's a cinematic masterpiece. But I saw someone say that we haven't seen Gary, Keith, and Ron together in the booth in a little bit of time. Listen, it makes me nervous. We've talked about this before. None of them are getting any younger, I'll just say. And I feel as though...
Don't talk about my grandparents like that.
I know. I feel as though we're biding our time a little bit, to some degree, right? They're not going to do this forever. And I saw somebody say that they've always traded off, like Ron and Keith, sort of alongside Gary. But I have noticed there are few and far between games this year where it's all 3 of them together. And I'm just saying that makes me a little nervous. Gives me some cold sweats.
I completely understand. Do you feel like there's been some time being taken off here and there? Yeah, we'll see. I do love it when all 3 of them are together.
Nothing like it.
And you have to admit, I know we talk about GKR a lot on this podcast.
Yeah.
But truthfully, like, I'm just saying this because obviously we are both broadcasters. Like, for any of you listening, that is really an art, to be able to have a 3-person broadcast that works, and it works every night. and they don't step on each other.
No.
Like, there is an art and a science to all of this.
Truly.
And truly, the artist, in my mind, is Gary, just in the sense that he truly is guiding the way, is leading the ship.
He's the quarterback.
He absolutely is the quarterback.
Yeah.
But to have 2 wide receivers like that, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. It
Neither
really
of them
doesn't.
are dropping the ball, ever. Literally and figuratively. Thank you.
Preach.
Anyway, back to the SNY graphic that started the rant. They threw one up about old friend Brett last night, which was just absurd. Like, it was really cherry picking of some stats. He has the 4th highest OPS. It was a top 5 graphic.
That was funny.
Since April 16th among players with minimum 25 plate appearances, putting him alongside Freddie Freeman, Aaron Judge, and Shohei Ohtani. You know what, SNY? What if we just didn't cherry pick the most? Listen, since April 16th, Brett's seen Syracuse. All right, so cool it. Places Shohei Ohtani has not seen since April 16th, Syracuse, New York.
That actually is so funny.
Enough.
Good for them, man. That is good. That is good stuff. And I saw his little smiling face. I was like, yeah, Brett, woohoo. One of the greats. You never know, though.
Brett,
He could be.
alongside 3 Hall of Famers and Brett Baty.
Hey, listen, I said in the beginning of the year, I still have no idea whether it's going to be true or not. But if you look back, it was from an episode that was like around sometime like early April. I said that this was going to be Brett Baty's breakout year and that he was going to be a Met for life. Still have no idea if that's true or not. But if it is, just know that I said it.
I'm going to let you keep that one. I'm going to let that be all you.
She's like, you go, girl.
No, you got it.
You got it. You ride. Speaking of, I don't know, actually, speaking of nothing, speaking of
Sure.
hate, it's almost Subway Series time.
Oh, boy.
And no, I say that as a joke, genuinely. I am so excited for something like this. You guys have to understand, there is something different at stake here this time around. Don't you think so?
I would agree.
I think to say bragging rights actually almost seems like it falls below the mark a little bit. But this really, if the Mets could pull it out, would be like that cherry on top.
Yeah.
And I used this analogy once today, but come with me on an analogy journey. For any of you guys that have had brothers ever, there is always this kind of dynamic between the older brother and the younger brother. And the older brother just, picks on the younger brother, is bigger, is stronger. But one day, and you never know when it's going to happen, but all of a sudden one day, your younger brother actually ends up being 6'2".
Right.
That's a real life example from my life.
Right.
And he's bigger, he's stronger, able to fight back.
And he wins the fight. Or he can at least fight back and be in the fight, and then one day he wins.
And one day he just wins.
Yeah.
Because he was just sick of that kind of treatment.
Sure.
I just wonder if this could be the start to that moment. Relax, not saying the Mets are New York's team. I understand the storied, and the history behind the Yankees and all that. But this was the first time that Soto acquisition, really, I think, that, anybody, picked the Mets over the Yankees.
Yeah.
So I just think that there's so much importance to this particular series. I really do.
Yeah, wins and losses, like X's and O's. The Mets swept them last year in the Subway Series, and can I just say, that was an electric feeling.
Oh, yeah.
Like in the regular season last year, that was awesome. And then also, I think even Soto aside, right? Last year, the Mets and the Yankees end up being 2 of the final 4 teams in the race, right? ALCS and NLCS. Obviously, the Yankees go on to the World Series and the Mets do not. But they were both really on a nationally prominent stage at the end of the year last year in terms of the national baseball scope. Also the first time something like that has happened in a long time. So to say that this Subway Series has some extra juice, I think would be an understatement, right? That's been the whole storyline. Then the Mets get Soto. Then they have the owner who's willing to spend, who looks like the George Steinbrenner of old. It's the whole 9 yards. So will there be some extra eyes on this series? Definitely. Does the regular season Subway Series actually mean anything besides bragging rights? No. But is it fun in New York if you're a fan of one of these 2 teams? Absolutely.
And you're right to say that end of the day, it's a couple of games. Doesn't really mean anything. But in your eyes, if the Mets were able to win this particular Subway Series, what would that signify?
I think it would just signify a shift that the Mets are competitive, right? Like you said, the little brother example, it's not even about the little brother winning the fight, it's that the little brother's fighting in the fight, right? Which is something, to be honest, we don't like to say it as Mets fans, but the Mets weren't doing for so long in the Wilpon era. And now they legitimately are, and they are also competing with the Yankees in free agency for the best players in baseball and winning. So we'll see what happens. I did see somebody say, which I think is really funny, and honestly, I sort of agree that, This is in the Bronx this weekend. This is the Yankee Stadium stint of the series. The second 3-game set is July 4th through 6th at Citi Field, which, by the way, whoever planned that, I mean, that's a masterclass. 4th of July Subway Series at Citi Field, sign me up.
Yep.
Anyway, but somebody was like, I'm legitimately concerned for Soto's safety in right field in the Bronx. Like, some drunk Yankees guy is going to, like, throw a beer bottle at his head.
The bleacher creatures. That's
No, like
what it's going to be.
But I do agree. Like, I get Juan Soto some extra security heading into the Bronx.
I got that phrase from Wardy, by the way. Check out his stuff. Wardy, big Mets guy. Heard him say that, thought that was hysterical. But no, I think, to your point, I was going to bring this up. I think that this series is actually going to show you so much about Juan Soto as an individual.
Yeah.
Who is this guy under pressure? You are going into Yankee Stadium. You are slumping in a way. Maybe slumping is harsh. You're not performing to the level that you are generally performing at. You are by no means going to get a warm welcome. There will be nobody applauding, no standing ovation to be found. You'll actually be getting booed.
Smattering of boos. That's what I was about to say.
You will be getting booed out of the building.
Yeah.
So, which by the way is a compliment, at least that's how I'd view it. But the point, because they miss you and they're not going to say it. But the point is, how are you going to handle that? Safety issues aside, like, of course, no one's. I hope that nobody does anything idiotic. Don't throw anything or be a loser.
Yeah.
But as far as just the general atmosphere and environment of it being really charged and electric, and the boos and your typical Mets Yankees fandom, can he literally step up to the plate? I would like to know.
Heater. That was a good one.
Thank you.
Yeah, not only, but also because Yankees fans are like the worst, most bitter individuals on the planet. My prediction heading into this, and we'll have to see next week or the weekend what really goes down. Yankees fans are like bitter as hell. The whole Juan Soto thing for the Yankees was less about the actual logistics of losing Juan Soto in your lineup, and it was more about the pride. It was more about the optics of the situation and how terrible it looked throughout baseball. So my bold prediction, which I'm sure some Yankees fans are literally going to fulfill in the comments if they don't listen to this whole thing, is that Yankees fans, considering he is hitting whatever 258, he hasn't had a great start to the season, Yankees fans are going to be like, see, look, why'd you pay him $765 million? Didn't even need to do that anyway. That's what Yankees fans are going to take, at least into this series. In July, if he starts hitting and he's Juan Soto, could be a totally different story. But right now, that's where they're going to take this, 100%.
I really hope for his sake that this is the kind of series where he can have a great showing and things turn around.
Hits 7 home runs.
Me too, but honestly, I don't know that I believe he will. I mean, 7 nevertheless won. Like, I don't know yet. I don't honestly know enough about him and how he handles pressure to know whether or not he's going to be able to perform in this venue. But I hope that he does. I really do.
I think he'll be pissed off, honestly. I think that's a really hard spot for anybody, right? Obviously, he's a competitor. He's a professional athlete. We've seen him be so successful at a very young age. I think he's going to want to show the Yankees that, that narrative that they're putting out there is not true. But we'll see what happens. Obviously, he's going to have a couple chances. It's not like he's playing them once this entire year. So we'll see what happens. Of course, the Yankees, a very good team, we should add, even in the absence of Juan Soto. First place in the AL East, and they're 24-17. So similar record to the Mets. Not as many wins, I should point out. But really,
should you point that out?
I should point out, I should say, not as many wins. Really looking forward, by the way, to I don't look forward to a lot from the New York Post, if you know, you know. But I am looking forward to the New York Post edition that they put out every year for the Subway Series that compares, I've mentioned this many a time on this podcast, each player positionally and says, who you take in a fight, essentially, Mets player or Yankees player, right? Right fielder, Juan Soto, Yankees right fielder, I'm picking Juan Soto. And then they do an overall, who they think's the better team. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would actually say that is tantalizing.
Tantalizing.
And I'd be curious to see who is picked for each position. Also, one other thing I want to say on the Subway Series, I think that you can also expect, and I mean this in a truly good way, the environment in there is going to feel like the World Series.
Yeah.
There are going to be many people wearing Mets Juan Soto jerseys. There are going to be fights. It's
going to be
my
dangerous.
prediction.
Especially the outside the stadium, the subway, people drinking, getting into the. I'm scared.
Disaster.
Yeah.
Genuinely disaster.
Yeah.
You need way extra security that game.
Oh
you
my
need
God.
you need staff members, you need bodies.
Double the staff.
Like
genuinely.
really,
Yeah.
you need to have a plan in place if you
yeah.
are the director of operations.
But I'm
for
telling
that.
you, I just know what the Yankees narrative is going to be, and if it's not, I'd be surprised. Like Yankees fans, I see it coming from a mile away. You know, they're too good for Juan Soto, so fine, so be it.
Well, if that's the way that Yankees fans feel now, then my only true request is then you have to stick with that. If that's how you feel, then you have to stick with that even when he's playing great again. That's all there is to it.
That's a nice request.
I'm just saying.
Anyway.
All right. Then we have our last thing that we wanted to cover, which is really more so some breaking national news that we heard today. The MLB commissioner, Rob Manfred, removed Pete Rose, Shoeless Joe Jackson, and other deceased players from the league's permanently ineligible list on Tuesday. Ultimately, Manfred ruled that MLB's punishment of banned individuals ends upon their deaths. Rose and Jackson, who were baseball's two pariahs stained by gambling, now have a pathway for consideration for baseball's Hall of Fame. I don't want to mess up the wording. As I was reading more about this earlier in the day, I do still believe that it is ultimately up to the Hall of Fame to decide what happens next. But this is a step, and obviously a big piece of breaking news that I'm sure people are going to have really a variety of opinions about, you know?
Yeah, Joe Jackson was obviously quite a long time ago, but Pete Rose, I think a guy that everybody has an opinion on, especially guys, in our father's generation, more of those 40, 50, 60-year-olds, he was a prominent figure in your lifetime. He was the hit king. He literally has more hits than anybody else in baseball history. Was he a perfect guy? No. Was he maybe morally the most sound guy? No. You can obviously see that based on why he was banned, right? The betting ban, whatever, the whole 9 yards. But it's sort of, to me, I'm not any expert, it's sort of, to me, always felt a little tainted. Okay, the guy who got the most hits in the history of the game is not enshrined in the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame will still have to make that decision. He still did a very bad thing, and that should not, right? The betting on the games, that was extremely, extremely sketchy all around. But when you look at the body of work that he put out and I guess what he was to baseball for so long, it did just feel a little strange for the sport. David Wright, by the way, to bring in a Mets thing, for what it's worth, he's at Citi Field today for some reason, and he when he was being interviewed said, "I think it's great. I'm excited for him, and deservedly, he's the hit king." So that's David Wright's opinion.
I still admittedly need to do a little research and figure out, all of his history and which parts of it are tainted. But honestly, I have my reservations about this decision, and I am confused even from a legality standpoint as to why, because he died now.
Because it's a lifetime ban, I guess his lifetime's
It's
over.
okay.
That's what Manfred said, but
Which I guess, but you know what I mean? Like, in a way, it's like just because he died doesn't take away the fact that he did those bad things. Like, he still did them. And I don't know, I think I'm not here to come on this podcast and say that your entire life should be defined by your mistakes.
No.
Because I think that that's a step too far.
right.
But shouldn't the mistakes that you made be a part of your legacy?
Yeah.
That's just how I feel about it. I struggle to figure out why. I get it, lifetime ban, but I don't know. Something about it just has me chuckling a little. It's like I don't know. I'm surprised. I'm surprised, I think is the right word, by this decision and it coming now. And I understand there were lawyers involved and this was sort of at the request of the family. But I'm not saying necessarily that I don't think he should be in the Hall of Fame, but I do have my reservations. If there was a lifetime ban, I just don't know that it should be lifted now for no other reason than he died.
I mean, to me, I'll say two things. I think even if he does get in, which I think he will. Now, I don't think they're doing this to not let him in. So I think in the next year or two, the Hall of Fame will put Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame. No matter how you feel on that, there'll always be an asterisk in people's minds next to his name. There won't be a physical asterisk, but people will always be like, oh, Pete Rose. Yeah, Pete Rose. It'll always be like, yeah, but he wasn't the best guy and he did this stuff. So I still think it'll be in people's minds and a part of his legacy, whether you want it to or not. And then I also think this is related somewhat, but to me, it's not in the same boat. I know what he did and I know how terrible it was with the betting on games and then being a part. It was a mess. You can't do that. But is it different to me than the steroid use of some of these guys who haven't gotten in? Absolutely. It's different than a Barry Bonds or a Sammy Sosa or somebody. It wasn't his on-field performance. To me, I am staunchly in the category, you guys can fight about this in the comments, that the steroid guys should not be in because you quite literally inflated your talent on the field and your product. Pete Rose did something terrible, but he didn't inflate what he did on the field.
Which I think, honestly, a part of the question is, how far should a punishment like that go?
Yeah.
You know, how long should the punishment last? And I guess ultimately, like you said, it now is up to the Hall of Fame, so we'll see what ends up happening. I think I'm inclined to agree with you that it would be odd to go through all of this for then the Hall of Fame to be like, no.
Yeah.
I can't see that happening, but who's to say?
Yeah.
Anyway, obviously, as is the same with anything else, we would love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. Do you think that he should be in the Hall of Fame or not? Drop your comments below. Feel free to be honest and truthful about that because we'd love to hear it.
We love some honesty and some truthfulness.
We would love some. We are nothing if not honest and truthful. Any final thoughts, and then we'll get out of here.
No, let's sweep the Pirates because you have no reason not to, and then let's head into the Subway Series on a high note.
What else can you ask for? Thanks so much as always for joining us. We will see you back here when the next big thing happens.